Well, since this is President's Day, Jeff, I thought that I would point out that I have an unusual gift. And I came by this when I was about 8 years old, and my mother was a World Book Encyclopedia sales lady. And she brought home an entire brand new set of World Book Encyclopedias. One of those volumes was all about the American presidents. So at the age of 8, I began to study about the presidents. And the more I read, the more I wanted to know, and the more I knew, the more I wanted to read. And so I at a fairly early age, learned all the presidents, the years they were born, when they died, when they served, what states they were from, a lot of information about the presidents. And our daughters would regale their friends. They'd bring them home, and I'd be in the living room. They'd say, "Hey, Dad, number 29. And I'd say, "Oh, well, that's Warren Harding. He was born in 1865, died in August 2nd, actually, 1923. And on about Warren Harding. His wife was Florence. He served from 1929 to 1923, died in office. He was 57. He was from Ohio. He was a newspaper editor. He was a state senator. Then he was president. And nominated in a smoke-filled room. It was a compromise deal." So they'd say, "Well, that's just because he knows about him." And our daughter would say, "Well, you give him a number between 1 and whatever it was, 42 at the time."
Yeah.
"Oh, number 19. "Oh, that was Rutherford B. Hayes. He was born in 1822 and on and on." So here we are on President's Day. And I know we don't have time for it, Jeff and Darius, but you could give me any number between 1 and 46, and I'll give you a 20-minute dissertation from the top of my head on the American president, whoever that happens to be.
Okay, I don't want a dissertation for 20 minutes, but just give me a name on 23.
On what?
23.
23 would be Benjamin Harrison. As a matter of fact, I
Give him
just
a number. Give him a
tweeted
number.
on him. Benjamin Harrison.
33.
33, that would be Harry S. Truman from Missouri. 1884, died in 1972.
Here's
He
the
was 88
difference
years old.
between your memory and mine.
Yes.
When my kid goes, "Hey, Dad," I'm going to go, "Who's that?"
Anyway, I thought that would be a fun way to
that's
start
great.
off our time together, because this is President's Day. And I remember doing a gig. It was an MC gig, and it was honoring George Washington and Lincoln. And I said, "Well, I got a call the other day from a group of these guys, and they said, 'Well, what about us?' And then I went through the whole list all the way
That's
through. I said, "These guys, we got to
crazy.
give them honorable mention." I went through the whole
That's-
list right up to whoever it was at the time. I think
That's
it was
amazing.
Trump. Yeah.
That's
Anyway.
amazing.
Crazy.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Testament Podcast. My name is Jeff Keck.
I'm Darius Lowe.
We're here today with Jack Wyman. Jack, how are you?
I'm doing fine, Jeff. It's a
Tell us-
pleasure to be on your show.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate it. It's a pleasure having you on the show. Tell us
Thanks.
about yourself.
Well, I'm a Yankee. I was born in Hartford, Connecticut.
All
grew
right,
up in
we're done.
Connecticut.
Have a good one.
Yeah, that's it. what a risk I took. Yeah, and it didn't pay off.
Start the podcast like that.
So I lived in New England, but I will hasten to add, Jeff, prompted by your immediate response, that we got down here as fast as we could, as they say in Texas. And my mother-in-law is a native Texan. She's from Electra, Texas. And she's still with us. She's almost 92 years old.
Oh, wow.
And we have 5 Texas-born grandchildren. So I guess that makes me an honorary.
You're a Texan.
I'm
Yep.
an honorary Texan. Absolutely.
Outstanding.
And I know that one of the things you wanted to talk about was my testimony and conversion, but I grew up in a Christian home and went to Sunday school at an early age, good news club, boys brigade, a lot of things. But I had never made a personal commitment to the Lord Jesus Christ. And my mother, the same lady who had brought home the World Book Encyclopedias, told me one day, she said, "Your sister's going to summer camp." It was a Christian summer camp in Western Massachusetts, and you should go. And I said, "I don't." I was very shy as a kid, painfully shy. Run upstairs and hide, shut the door whenever company would come. I said, "No, I am not going to camp." "Oh, it's only for a week. You should go." My mother was very persistent. God rest her soul. She was the most persistent. She'd make a great lobbyist. She just would never back down. And finally, I told her, I said, "Okay, Mom, I'll go to camp." So my sister and I went to camp. I was 9 years old, and we were in a chapel service one day, and the evangelist was talking about Jesus Christ and about salvation. And he extended an invitation and put my hand up, went forward, and he prayed with me and some of the other boys that had also made decisions. And I went back to my cabin a changed kid. I mean, I joke with people. I said I repented of my life of sin at the age of 9. But the fact of the matter is, no matter whether you're 9 or 29 or 39 or 69, no matter how young you are, you still feel that even if you've been raised in a Christian home, there's something about making it personal and making it decisive that changes your whole emotional and psychological and spiritual framework. It just gives you feel good all over. And I just felt like the Lord had transformed my heart and was going to transform my life. And to God be the glory. That's how I became a Christian. So I raised in a Christian home, saved at an early age, and but it's been a great journey. I call it a great journey with Jesus that I have had.
Yeah.
And as the old song says, sweeter as the days go by.
So that was at 9.
I was the age of 9 when I gave my life to Christ.
Tell me, so from 9 years old, how did your relationship with Christ build? I mean, a lot of 9-year-olds, I have a 9-year-old, right? So a lot of 9-year-olds really probably aren't digging into that relationship with Christ like we know that we need at that moment. A lot of 9-year-olds aren't really digging into scripture and digging into all that stuff. So at what point, I'm like through schooling and everything, at what point did you really get to where, you wanted to study the Bible, you wanted to dig in, you understood the relationship that was necessary with Christ?
Thank you, Jeff. Well, I attended public school, but we also attended Sunday school faithfully. And I was in a great Sunday school class with some great teachers, and they taught me the Word. And I was eager to learn it. And it's like every week, every day was a new learning experience. And I took advantage of the opportunities to be involved in various youth activities. I was involved in the youth group as a kid. And then later in high school I was, and even in college I was involved with a group of fellow Christians, young people. And I think that through all those experiences and through the godly influence of some great men and women in my life, including my parents, I learned gradually what it meant to be a Christian. Now, I'm still learning. I think of Philippians 1:6, where Paul told the Philippians, being confident of this very thing, that he who has begun a good work in you will perform it, will keep on working on you until the day of Jesus Christ. So I'm still a work in progress. I'm still growing. Every day I grow. You were all in school with Christ, as Andrew Murray said, and there are no graduates. And so I look back on my life and I realize that no matter where I was, whether it was as a youngster or then my years in high school or even my years in college and graduate school, and as I, branched out into a career, Jesus was with me every step of the way, and I was learning more about him, and I was discovering more about what it means to follow in his steps. And so it's been a great trip.
I love what you just said. We're all in school, and there are no graduates.
There are no graduates.
Sounds like a great book topic.
Yeah, we are all in school with Christ. Yeah, he said that, and I've never forgotten that. I think sometimes people who have been saved for a very, very long time, as I now have been, getting long in the tooth. I realize how many years it's been since I was 9 years old, but they feel like...
Was it like 10, 12?
Pardon me?
10, 12 years?
Yeah. That would be nice to go back that far. And start
That's where
over
you're at.
and learn from all your mistakes. Yeah, it takes a lifetime to learn how to live. So I'd like to say, okay, Lord, take me back. Let me go over. But not that I have a lot of regrets, but I have, like all of us, I have a few. But I think that that a lot of Christians think, well, you've arrived at a certain point.
Right.
And there's not that continual thirst. I mean, even now, at this advanced, as I'm in the winter years of my life, I'm teaching an adult Sunday school class, and I am learning. I'm excited because I'm learning things about Daniel and the book of Daniel that for some reason I never been taught, never knew. I mean, a lot of pastors and teachers stay away from prophetic books. But this has been a great experience. I hope it has for the class, but I know it has been for me. And that's just one example I use. Jeff and Darius, is that God is always opening new doors for you and asking you by faith to walk through those doors. We lost our Sunday school teacher he died very suddenly. And so, I came forward and volunteered to teach the class, and boy, what a learning experience it has it's been. So you're absolutely right, Jeff. We're all in school with Christ, and we are to the moment we draw our last breath. We are in school with Christ. And it's been, for me, I think, the things that I'll let you ask another question, but I mean, I've learned a lot of things in that time, and I've kind of prioritized them. Yeah. Certain lessons, but I think you learn about the sin of pride. I've had to learn that the hard way. When I was young and in politics, I was kind of cocky. I mean, I wasn't obnoxious about it, but there was an amount of pride that came into my life. Having achieved success as a state legislator at the age of 23, that can easily go to your head.
Yeah.
And it did mine, I must confess. So I think God has taught me humility and is still teaching me humility. I think he's teaching me compassion because of the people that he has brought across my path who have been in need, who have been hurting, people I've been able to help. I mean, I spent 10 years working in Chuck Colson's prison fellowship ministry, and I met prisoners for the first time in my life, and ex-offenders who were volunteers. And God taught me what it means to be compassionate and to be loving and not to judge people, but to understand that even people who are incarcerated have interesting and complex stories in their lives, even if their lives have led them to this unfortunate situation and circumstance. I saw the church behind the walls, Jeff and Darius. In my 10 years at Prison Fellowship, I saw the church behind the wall flourishing. And I never even knew there was a church behind the wall. I never even knew what Christ and the Holy Spirit and God the Father were doing in the lives of prisoners and in the life of the prison itself until I went to work for Prison Fellowship. I had no interest no one in my immediate family had been incarcerated. And, the worst that ever happened to me is I get a speeding ticket. So I really had no natural interest in that ministry.
Sure.
But God placed me there.
So how old when did that start? Prison.
I went to work for
prison stuff.
I went to work for Prison Fellowship in '95.
Okay.
I was head of the Christian Civic League of Maine which is a statewide Christian political action organization. And I headed for 10 years from 1984 until 1994. Then I went to work at Prison Fellowship, was there for 10 years. One of the questions that you'd ask is, what were the most formative jobs? I would say certainly the Christian Civic League taught me how we can take our faith into the political arena and be redemptive, be respectful, have integrity, respect those that disagree with you strongly, and show the love of Christ. Even if you're struggling with issues like gay rights legislation and controversies like that, abortion, for example, very controversial social issues. God teaches you how to navigate that right down the middle, where you're not being so compassionate that you're compromising your convictions, but you're not being so convicted that you're compromising your love and compassion. And there's a way that happens, and I learned a lot about that through just practical experience.
Sure.
And then, of course, the 10 years of Prison Fellowship were formative. I already talked about that. And I pastored a little church in Connecticut that was ready to close. And I went and pastored that church, and God, through love, made it alive again over 4 years that I was there in Connecticut. And that was a wonderful experience. And that was transformative, because what God taught me there was, if you love people, it's amazing the change that makes in their lives, to know that they are loved and to know that they're accepted and to know that they're cared for.
Jumping back into, everything that all the ministries that you've served in and been a part of and I worked in, what would you say, I guess as of right now in your life, which one of those, do you think created the biggest impact on your life?
Well, they all did, Darius. It's hard to say. I would say that the major ones were the 10 years I was at the Christian Civic League involved in Christian political action work. My decade at Prison Fellowship what changed my life.
Yeah.
Changed my life. Jacob said after he had wrestled with the angel, surely the Lord was here and I didn't know it. And that was, I committed that verse to memory because, that's the way I was.
Yeah.
God in prison? I doubt it. And nothing good can come out of prison.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was a great experience. And being in politics and then pastoring that little church and seeing the change. But, now God's brought me to what may turn out to be one of the most exciting, if not the most exciting ministry of all, and that is Heart of the City. I just recently joined them. You've had Rob Veal on your program, who is our president and CEO. And Heart of the City was birthed out of Rob's heart and his imagination, his creativity, his vision, and his passion for helping the needy people in South Denton County. And we're into our 5th year now. And I brought these statistics. This is amazing. We now have, after going into, it's not even 5 years yet, it will be by the end of this year, 270 plus volunteers every single week are serving the poor and the needy. I should say to your viewers, what we do is provide clothing and food to people who are in need. And we have several food pantries around the area. There are 5 sites. And we're serving over 800 families every single week.
Man, that's awesome.
And you can see the cars lined up. And we've got the volunteers there. A couple of weeks ago, it was a cold, rainy Saturday. And man, we had a record number of volunteers. They put on their raincoats. They stood out there for 2 or 3 hours, helping people who are coming up in their cars. I saw young women driving, and they'd have 3 or 4 kids in the back seat. They're there for food. And it's a great, great ministry. And we have provided last year, according to the report that we recently submitted, 1,682 million. No, hold on. I'm sorry. That's not that much. 1.6 million pounds of food. That's still a lot. 1.6 million pounds of food.
Wow.
And then 67,000 pieces of clothing given. And then we've recently started Thrive Academy. And here's what we're going to do with that. We are going to train poor people skills so they can go out and get jobs and they can provide for themselves, provide for their families, have dignity, have some self-respect, and give glory to God by what they're doing. We're helping them, pursue their interests. What are their talents? What are their gifts? We recently got a guy a job as a forklift operator. He wanted to do that, but he didn't have the skills. Nobody would hire him. We trained him. We had somebody, on our staff that happened to have that expertise. I don't know where they got this person, but anyway, he provided the training, and the guy said, in a week I had a job. Nice. So we are also going to do that. But Heart of the City Lewisville, Jeff and Darius, it's just an exciting, wonderful ministry. And it brings me full circle at this point in my life and career. I got involved in politics and fell in love with politics and history because I wanted to make a difference in the lives of people in need. I wanted to make a difference in the lives of working class people and people that were struggling. I felt like politics was a noble profession and I wanted to help poor people. Now here I am toward the end of my life and career, again, helping poor people. Yeah. And it's a very rewarding thing. My job is to raise money. But if people want to know more about Heart of the City, all they need to do is go to our website, which is heartofthecitylewisville.com. That's Heart of the City, Lewisville, Texas, heartofthecitylewisville.com. Yep. And they can learn all about it, and they can also volunteer, and they can also give financially. So to your question, Darius, I've always thought that everything I was doing, I've been in international ministries, my time in the state legislature, I taught for 8 years American government at a community college here in Texas, that whatever I was doing at that particular time was A, what God wanted me to do, B, an exciting and wonderful experience because of one, and finally, it was a learning experience. Whatever I was doing next, I was going to learn something. I learned about India. I learned about nations all over the world because of the experience I had in international ministry. Yeah. And I pastored 4 churches. And as you gentlemen, I'm sure know, even pastoring one is quite an experience. It can be good or bad. I pastored 4 small churches, 2 in Maine, 1 in Connecticut, and I started a church here in Texas and pastored that for 4 years. And that was you learned a lot from that too.
Yeah.
It's a great experience. Being a shepherd, an under shepherd, I guess, for people has its unique challenges, but also extraordinary blessings. And it's a very honorable calling. So I'm an ordained clergyman, and I was glad to have that be part of my life as well.
So I want to rewind a little bit.
Okay.
You've been a pastor of the church. You've served in prison ministry. You've served in the Christian advocacy or whatever
Christian
it was.
Civic League
Okay.
of Maine, back in Maine, yes.
But you started in politics. So what was it that God revealed to you to make you leave politics and go into ministry? That's not a normal change.
No.
People,
Well,
so-
the wonderful thing, Jeff, about the Christian Civic League of Maine and the 10 years I spent there is you talk about a transition, or another way of putting it is bringing politics and ministry together to head a Christian political action organization was a very exciting experience because I worked with pastors in churches all over the state, about 350. And there were 4,000 families that belonged to our organization. So what I had, at least in the 10 years I was there, is an opportunity to use my political experience, having served 2 terms in the House of Representatives, with I combine that with my pastoral experience, be able to go out and preach in churches all over the state, which I did for that decade and loved it. And you met so many interesting pastors and interesting churches. We were non-denominational. So one Sunday I'd be in an Assembly of God church. The next Sunday I'd be in a Baptist church. I might be in an American Baptist or Southern Baptist or a Methodist church or whatever. And that was just a great learning experience, as you can imagine. I think, Jeff, though, more directly to your point, to your question, I think that politics has changed dramatically. And I wish that I could sit here as a natural optimist, which I am, and say it's changed for the better. But I'm not so sure that's true. I still think it's a noble calling for the Christian. I still believe that if a young Christian man or a young Christian woman is interested in civics, interested in public affairs and current events, and wants to study government or politics in college, I think it's wonderful. And I would encourage them to do it. They don't let anyone. People tried to tell me, because this was back in the 1970s, in the early 70s.
Yeah.
Oh, Jack, no Christian should be in politics. That's the devil's playground. You don't want to be. You've got to be in ministry. I said, well, I think I can be in ministry in politics. And
maybe being in politics is ministry.
I think that it is. I think it's a very special kind of ministry.
Dealer's going to run
Jeff.
for president.
Yeah, well, good. There is. If you do, I'll campaign for you if I'm still around. If I haven't gone to my eternal reward. But I think that politics is great. I think it's a great community. Public service is a very important thing. And I think all of us should do some part of it, even if it's just vote, if we just vote.
Yeah.
But I think it's more challenging today to maintain a Christian witness in politics than it's been in a long time because of the divisions in our country and because of much of the hate and anger and frustration. And people are very upset. They're very frustrated. And that's hard. But one could turn that around and say, well, that's all the more reason for Christians to be involved, to make a salt and light difference. I've always loved what Jesus said in his Sermon on the Mount. You are the salt of the earth. You are the light of the world. So let your light shine. Don't put it under a basket. Put it up on the lampstand so everyone can see it. Brighter than these lights we have in the studio.
Yeah.
But, let your light shine. Let it shine. And then, he said, if the salt has lost its flavor, it's good for nothing except to be trodden underfoot. So we need to remain salty Christians, and we need to sprinkle our influence throughout society and culture in this world that is lost and fallen and needs Jesus more than what we need in America more than anything is spiritual revival. But that's not going to come from government. That's not going to come from electing the right person to the White House. The millennial reign is not going to be flown in on Air Force One. What we have to do as Christians is say, in my sphere, I can be salt and light. I can make a difference. I can speak out. I can go to meetings. I can talk with my neighbors and my family. I can be a great example to my kids. Jeff, if I may say this on the broadcast, I hope that it's okay. If it's not, just edit it out. I feel so relaxed with you guys tonight, and I'm enjoying this that I am going to go ahead and say it. You have recently been promoted to being captain on the local police force.
Right.
Okay. And I think that's an example right there of public service, community service, and a very special and unique opportunity to have a salt and light influence on the lives of people who may be, the Lord knows what kind of situations they might be facing or you might be facing with them.
Right.
But as a Christian committed to law enforcement, you, first of all, deserve the gratitude and have earned the gratitude of all of us who are citizens. Because without law and without order, there would be no American republic. There would be no freedom. So your job is extremely important, as I'm sure you've been told. And when in my political activities, I've always made a point to salute the men and women in uniform, not just those who serve overseas in the military, but the firefighters and the police officers in our communities who put their lives on the line every single day. But that is an example of where you can serve and you can shine and you can flavor the culture with a positive influence and a positive testimony.
Right. Awesome. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. I salute you for what you are doing. Darius, what about you?
What about me?
Should I interview you?
yeah. I'm like, yeah, you flipped this around on us. Now we're getting interviewed.
Well, I want to say one thing about you, Darius, if I may. I've spoken about Jeff here and just so tremendously impressed with what he's doing in the community and his service and his willingness to lay down his life. But, young people say all the time, young people are the future of the country. So, yeah. But you are. You really and truly are. And that's important because freedom is only preserved one generation at a time. So it is your responsibility and your opportunity, which is exciting as a Christian as well as a citizen, to have that salt and light influence in your community, with your neighbors, with those you associate with the people at this church. Encouraging them to get involved, encouraging them to vote, and realizing that freedom has to be defended. Freedom is not passed on automatically, like as Reagan said, through the bloodstream. It has to be won and earned and defended by every single generation, which means every generation of young people have to step up to the bat, step up to the plate and say, I'm going to do my part. I'm going to make sure I vote. I'm going to make sure I'm informed on issues. I know where the candidates stand. I'm going to speak my heart and mind on my convictions, and I'm going to do it in a way that is redemptive and respectful and compassionate, but also truthful and courageous and strong. So I'm glad you're here for this interview, and it's an honor to meet you. And I wish you well in whatever the Lord leads you to do. I know you're involved in worship here at the church, and so I think that is great. I think it's a wonderful thing.
Thank you. Yeah, no.
You want this?
No. I just wanted to say thank you, Jack. Thank you for your awesome kind words, man. Really, it's appreciated and and inspiring as well, and kind of being reminded, of kind of what not only myself, but my friends and people around my age, the responsibility that we do have, to kind of help, usher in, that same exact influence on culture, on the culture of the country. So that's cool. But one thing that I just want to ask, kind of somewhat getting kind of off of the topic we were just talking about, but I know, in your life, you've had a bunch of God stories, right? A bunch of things that you can honor God and thank God for and just be grateful for. But one thing that we kind of wanted to talk about a little bit is your grandson.
Yes.
If you could kind of touch base on that a little bit. Kind of
certainly. Thank you, Darius. I'm glad. Yeah, we were going to talk about that. Our grandson, Finley, was diagnosed with leukemia at the age of 2.
Oh, wow.
And we thought that it was just an iron deficiency.
Right.
His mother, our oldest daughter, thought that, well, he looks a little peaked. He looks a little pale. He doesn't have quite the energy, but maybe it's an iron deficiency. And I will never, ever forget the day we were at our daughter's home. We lived nearby, lived right around the corner at the time. Now they're out in Longview. They moved away. But we were waiting to hear from the doctor. And I said, well, I'm sure it's going to be it's iron deficient or something that can be treatable. They give him some medicine, whatever. And I remember my daughter picking up the phone, and I couldn't hear what she was saying because she was in the other room. But then she said, Mom, I need you to come in here right now. And so my wife got up and she went into the room, and I could hear my daughter sobbing. And she was saying, yes, yes. And she got off the phone. She said, Finley's numbers have come back and they're all flatlined, all of them. And they want us to bring him down immediately to Children's Hospital in Dallas. And I said, oh, man. And I prayed hard that night. And you really don't know how much you depend on God until you really depend on him.
Yeah.
And Beth went with our daughter, went down to the hospital there, and it was about 11:30 at night. And my wife called me, and she said, well, they've done the examination, and Finley has leukemia. And so they began treatment, but we thank God for the wonderful treatment he got. And we asked people to pray. And people all over the country, and at that time I was with an international ministry, people all over the world were praying for Finley, that God would heal him of this leukemia. Come to find out, by the grace of God, it was the less virulent strand of leukemia, and therefore more treatable, and the chances of his recovery were excellent. I did a little historic research on leukemia and found out that in 1960, was certainly within my lifetime. I was a kid, but I was here on this earth. 90% of children who were diagnosed with leukemia in 1960 died, and only 10% lived. Now it's the reverse. Yeah. 90% live and only 10% die.
Wow.
So they have, over the decades, reversed those figures. So, but it still was a long haul. He went through a lot of chemotherapy treatments because, as your viewers know, leukemia is a blood disease. It's a blood cancer. So he had a lot of chemo treatments, and he lost his hair, but he was a real trooper, and he never complained. And his parents were there, and his family was there. We were there, but most importantly, Jesus was there. He was with him every step of the way. And now I'm pleased to say he's fully recovered. And you never know that he ever had leukemia.
That's
Every
so
once in a while, I
awesome.
run into someone who tells me, someone I haven't seen in a while, we prayed for your grandson, Jack. What was his name? Finn? I said, Finley. We prayed for little Finley. How's he doing? And I say, he's doing great. He's fully recovered. And then I say, thank you for your prayers, by the way. Thank you for praying for Finley. Oh, we were glad to do it. We prayed hard for him, that God would spare his life and would heal him. That's one of the more dramatic God stories. I mean, there are others, but that's the one I wanted to share because maybe some of your viewers are going through some deep waters in their health or the health of a child or a sibling or a parent. And we realize that, God doesn't, for whatever reason, heal everybody who's sick. He doesn't heal everybody who's got cancer. I lost a brother of cancer. He was 59, diagnosed in March and gone in September. Wow. And so that happens. But I want your viewers to know that prayer makes a difference, that we felt the strength of those prayers. We felt the love that those prayers represented when people would email us or call us or write us and say, we want you to know we're praying for Finley. We're praying for him, and we're going to keep right on praying for him until he's healed. So God is the healer, and he can heal, and there's no sickness that is too hard for God to heal.
How old is he now?
Finley just last November turned 10 years old.
Wow.
He's 10. And he's
How old was he when they said, "Okay, it's gone"?
He was it was about 3 years, Jeff, 3-4 years of treatments.
Yeah, that's outstanding. Hey, this is the testament, right? We do testimonies. What a testimony of God, right?
Thank
what
you,
a
Jeff.
testimony
Amen.
of God.
Amen. Well, we'll never forget it. I'll never forget it to the day I die.
Yeah.
Well, Jack, we always like to ask, our guests, what's like a favorite, verse or favorite song or, passage, storyline, like whatever. So do you have anything like that? Like a favorite verse or anything or?
Well, yes, I do, Darius. I had the opportunity to think about that. And so I appreciate you and Jeff forwarding those questions.
Yeah.
For me, I mean, I have many favorite scriptures. I think no one could be a Christian for as many years as I've been without falling in love with a lot of special verses over the years. But my father...
It's not an easy question. I mean,
no, it's not. And my father taught me. I learned a lot of scriptures from the Good News Club and Boys Brigade, and my father taught me a lot. But my favorite above all is Isaiah 40:31. It was my mother's life verse. They that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall run and not be weary, and they shall walk and not faint. And that epitomized my mother, who had endless energy and enthusiasm. She lost a number of children. In childbirth, she had twins that lived only 3 or 4 days and then both died. And my parents, I had a daughter, my older sister, who had severe brain trauma and was institutionalized most of her life. So it isn't that my mother was buoyant and cheerful and joyful because she'd never had any problems. It's that she really lived out Isaiah 40:31. She waited on God, and he renewed her strength. And she mounted up, like an eagle with wings. And she ran, she ran and she did not get weary. She walked, she did not faint. Yeah. Mount up as eagles. We all need to do that. We all need to have the renewal of God's strength in our lives so we can mount up like eagles. On eagle's wings, I say.
Yeah,
absolutely.
On eagle's wings. So that's my favorite.
Excellent. I love Jack Wyman, thank you so much for coming. I appreciate you being on the show.
Thank you. I enjoyed it very much.
Great.
Thank you both very much. I enjoyed being here, and thank you for the invitation.
Before you go, number 9.
Number 9. That's interesting. We can't say much about him because he only was president for 30 days. William Henry Harrison was born in 1773 and died at the age of 68 in 1841. Here's the thing we can learn. I hope you don't edit this out. Here's a little moral tale for your listening and viewing audience. He had a rough campaign that had worn him out, but everyone was saying, "You're too old to be president. You don't have the help." And he said, because we got a couple of guys now, you're talking about age, Trump and Biden. But anyway, he said, I am strong. I am strong. So on his inauguration day, which was March 4th, he decided to deliver the longest inaugural address, 2 hours and 45 minutes, on a blistering cold, snowy March day with no overcoat. He contracted pneumonia, and in 30 days he was gone. So it's one of the great ironies of American history. Here's this guy trying to prove how strong he is, wild. And he dies 30 days later.
Wow! The whole time you were talking in my head, I was like, well, I had to ask, like, why only 30 days? And then you answered it. I did not.
Yeah, he died of pneumonia. He got pneumonia and he died.
Crazy.
But you know something? He left a legacy, a little bit of a legacy. Because his grandson was short, so I call it a little legacy. Benjamin Harrison, his grandson, was the 23rd president of the United States.
Okay. Nice.
So it was the only time that a grandson and grandfather both served in the White House.
Oh, wow.
We've had 2 father-sons. We had the Adamses, John Adams and John Quincy Adams, and of course, George Bush and George Walker Bush, Bush 41 and Bush 43. But Benjamin Harrison was William Henry Harrison's grandson, and he was elected president. So,
wow.
That's number 9, Jeff. Now, don't edit any of that out. Okay, good.
Because we don't have the kind of time we need to go through all. What number are we on right now? 46?
We're 46 now.
Yeah, I didn't even know that. So, yeah.
We're going to do a whole show on presidents.
I hope so. I'd love to come back. I would absolutely
We'll do a live show. We'll have call-ins, and they can just give you a number, and you'd be like,
Hey, you know something? Let's do it. Let's do that. You do that, and I'll be back here. Yeah. Anybody out there want to give Wyman a number? Stop the presidential historian, right?
I appreciate you coming.
Thank you for coming, Jack. Appreciate you.
Folks, if you want to learn more about who Jesus is, visit us at thetestamentpod.com. That's thetestamentpod.com. And click on the gospel message at the top of the page. Also, you can click on the Testament Podcast tab and learn more about our podcast and see what our most recent episodes are that we've launched. In addition, we're always looking for guests who want to brag on God. So please send yourself or someone you know to thetestamentpod.com and drop us a line with your interest, or email us at thetestamentpod@gmail.com. We'll send you all the information we need in order to book you for an interview. Remember, do your part. Help us get these testimonies out there. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram, and then like and share our posts so your friends can see what we're doing too. So thanks everybody for listening. Bye.